With over 2 decades of scientific innovation across oncology, Pfizer continues to drive the next wave of cancer breakthroughs. Approximately 40% of all our R&D is invested in oncology. With 90-plus clinical trials across more than 4,000 sites, Pfizer is focused on 8 new medicines by 2030, all with a single focus: helping your patients with cancer. Learn more at cancer.pfizer.com.
If you want all of your data in one place, you need the Intuit ERP. I'm Damon John, and I run my growing business on Intuit Enterprise Suite. Learn more at intuit.com/ERP.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome into the Stone Zone. Well, California Governor Gavin Newsom's carefully cultivated image as the slick, telegenic heir apparent of the Democrats is cracking under the weight of millions of dollars being funneled into organizations tied to his wife, Jennifer Siebel Newsom. When you hear more about this unfolding scandal, remember you heard about it here first in the Stone Zone. A federal Department of Justice investigation rooted in whistleblower complaints and public records is examining the finances, tax compliance, and nonprofit dealings of the first partner, and by extension, the governor himself. Newsom, of course, says a Trump-orchestrated witch hunt designed to derail his 2028 presidential ambitions. That poor me victimization defense sounds familiar. It echoes the initial denials from other politicians like disgraced former Congressman Eric Swalwell, whose self-inflicted wounds later proved fatal to his career. The evidence here is not fabricated talking points. It rests on a host of hard evidence, including IRS filings, Fair Political Practices Commission disclosures, and years of good investigative reporting. Newsom has been running a classic influence loop scam that's operated in plain sight. Under California's well-known behested payments system, elected officials can solicit unlimited donations from corporations, interest groups, and regulated entities to their favored nonprofits. There are no contribution caps like there are on campaign donations or gifts, only disclosure rules. Newsom has been the state's most prolific practitioner. Since 2011, he has actually steered over $347.2 million, 62% of all such behests by California lawmakers, to his preferred causes. A substantial portion has landed at organizations linked to his wife. Peering into Siebel Newsom's record shows that she was an early progenitor of using the woke DEI scam to fill her slimy husband's coffers. The California Partners Project, which Siebel Newsom co-founded to promote gender equity, has received more than $4.3 million in behested donations since 2020. One donor alone, the Federated Indians of Grayton Rancheria, operators of a major Sonoma County casino that lobbies Sacramento, gave $1.8 million to the Newsom-favored charity. Even more revealing is that the Representation Project, the 501c3 nonprofit founded by Newsom's wife in 2011 to combat gender stereotypes through documentaries and advocacy. IRS filings show that over the past decade, that nonprofit paid her approximately $150,000 annually as the chief creative officer and another $150,000 yearly to her for-profit production company, Girls Club LLC. That was for the licensing rights to her film Misrepresentation and Mask You Live In. Combined, therefore, she and her LLC have pulled in more than $3.7 million, all at the behest of her husband, the governor. Additional corporate donations to the Representation Project include PG&E, AT&T, Kaiser Permanente, and Comcast, all of whom, of course, have business interests with the governor's orbit in Sacramento. A 2021 Sacramento Bee investigation already flagged over $800,000 in such donations, which are a thinly veiled pay-for-play scheme. This is not abstract nonprofit chicanery. This is a direct pipeline. State power and donor access leads to bastard money to family-controlled nonprofits, which results in salaries, licensing fees, and production revenues to the governor's spouse and to her company. Siebel Newsom's annual earnings from these arrangements have hovered around $300,000, contributing a family lifestyle that includes multi-million-dollar homes and other assets. The Representation Project's own filings show executive compensation consuming a striking share of revenue in some years, precisely the kind of private inurement and self-dealing that the IRS rules and basic nonprofit governance are supposed to prevent. Newsom's complaints that this is purely political theater ignore the lengthy paper trail. The Department of Justice probe, which includes IRS involvement and has expanded from an initial focus on Siebel Newsom's taxes and finances, originated from whistleblower complaints to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Sacramento during Joe Biden's presidency and well before the recent public escalation. Agents have interviewed former employees and associates and issued subpoenas for their records. These are standard steps in examining a potential tax crime or a nonprofit compliance violation, not the hallmarks of a hastily manufactured political hit job. California's own Fair Campaign Practices Commission already fined Newsom's operation multiple times for $13,000 and $31,500 respectively for late or incomplete behested payment disclosures. The pattern of chief executives using nonprofits to shift around illicit money extends far beyond Sacramento, of course. In Florida, a grand jury and legislative scrutiny examined how $10 million from a Medicaid overbilling settlement with a company called Centene was directed to the Hope Foundation, which was the charitable arm of an initiative launched by First Lady Casey DeSantis. Those funds were diverted from state coffers and used by a political fund by DeSantis' then chief of staff, who's now the state attorney general. That episode damaged reputations. It actually stopped Casey DeSantis' gubernatorial ambitions to follow her husband, stopped them cold, and underscored how first spouses nonprofits can become vehicles for corrupt money transfers. Across administrations and in both parties, the public is awakening to these arrangements as settlement slush funds. Grant-making, opacity, and family foundation pipelines face increasing congressional and, for God's sakes, yes, media scrutiny. Newsom was never a credible national contender anyway. His record, an explosion of homelessness, business exodus, energy unreliability, failed economic policy, and soft on crime policies have delivered measurable decline, which I believe already disqualifies him in the eyes of most Americans outside of the coastal bubbles. This family enrichment scandal, however, simply accelerates the inevitable. Even if the Department of Justice investigation yields no criminal charges, proving criminal intent in these complex nonprofit and tax matters can often be difficult, the public record of self-dealing will provide devastating ammunition for progressive primary challengers who already view Newsom as inauthentic, focus-grouped, a moderate poser, more interested in personal branding than achieving genuine change. That's right, in the progressive wing of today's Democratic Party, Newsom is viewed as too moderate. Can you believe it? He will be rejected as the Democrat nominee in 2028. I still predict that Kamala Harris is the strong frontrunner for their nomination, God willing. That, of course, is the result of having spent millions, actually billions of dollars on her failed attempt most recently. But if you've seen any of the interviews with her, you recognize that there has been no improvement in her performance as a candidate. What you get is still a word salad. Voters across the spectrum are growing increasingly tired of these polished operators who treat public office as an exercise in vanity. They're rejecting the used car salesman archetype whether it wears a red tie or a blue tie, in favor of bold authenticity. Newsom's bona fides as a soulless hack position him as the perfect sacrificial lamb for populists from all sides to revel in his destruction. The old insider game of directing favors, behests, and nonprofit dollars to connected entities is coming to an abrupt, unceremonial end, and I believe California's governor will now find himself in the crosshairs not because of any partisan vendetta, but because the evidence of his corruption has finally become far too grotesque to ignore. When we come back, we have a number of major Supreme Court justices' rulings that we want to get into, having to do with both the status of Haitians and Syrians in this country. Also want to touch on the horrific situation in Venezuela. Venezuela, of course, hit by two powerful earthquakes, one measuring 7.2, the other 7.5 in magnitude, struck that country's northern region, and the situation is dire. We're so busy in our everyday lives, perhaps we don't realize the misery and suffering going on in Venezuela, but we'll touch on that as well. And then we'll get into a bit more about the Supreme Court, where two of the justices got into it. It's very rare. Justice Alito and Justice Sotomayor kind of exchanging sharp remarks there. It's all here in the Stone Zone, and don't go away. We'll be right back with more.
Hello, I'm Max Rushton. The World Cup is back, and Football Weekly is going daily. If you want award-winning soccer coverage from a podcast that's been overanalyzing the game for more than 20 years and still hasn't run out of opinions or just repeats the same ones over and over again, this is where you'll find it. We'll be producing 33 daily episodes across the tournament, breaking down all the action, the results, and, of course, the drama. Can the US make it out of the group stage and into the spotlight on the biggest stage? World Cup Daily. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or watch full episodes on YouTube.
Adobe Firefly is the all-in-one creative studio with AI-powered image and video editing for today's creative process. Built for creators of every kind, Firefly helps you generate, edit, and experiment fast. Because the asks aren't getting smaller, the budgets aren't getting bigger, and the timelines, oh yeah, still tight. With all the best creative AI models in one place, Firefly brings your ideas to life. Unlock a better way to make with Adobe Firefly.
Hey, business owners, we know you know the importance of maximizing every dollar. With the Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business American Express card, you can make your expenses work just as hard as you. From afternoon coffee runs to stocking office supplies and even team dinners, you can earn miles on your business purchases. Plus, you can earn 125,000 bonus miles for a limited time through July 15th. The Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business Card. Check out the new card design at www.delta.com/Spotify Business. Minimum spending requirements and terms apply. Offer ends July 15th, 2026.
Suffering from dry, tired, irritated eyes? Don't let dry eyes win. Use Sustain Pro. It hydrates, restores, and protects dry eyes for up to 12 hours. Sustain Pro. Triple action dry eye relief.
The Stone Zone. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Venezuela is experiencing one of the darkest moments in modern history. Two powerful earthquakes, measuring 7.2 and 7.5 on the Richter scale in magnitude, struck the country's northern region within seconds of each other, making this the most devastating seismic event to hit the nation in more than a century. As search and rescue operations continue, the official death toll has now surpassed 188 people, with more than 1,500 injured. Those numbers are expected to rise significantly as emergency crews continue searching collapsed buildings and isolated communities. Hundreds of people are believed to remain trapped beneath the rubble, while thousands of families continue desperately searching for missing loved ones. But this tragedy is not solely the result of nature. Across the affected areas, heartbreaking images reveal ordinary Venezuelans digging through concrete with their bare hands, using shovels, metal bars, and whatever tools they can find in desperate attempts to rescue family members, neighbors, and friends. In many locations, heavy rescue equipment is simply unavailable. Basic emergency supplies such as flashlights, helmets, protective gloves, safety goggles, rescue tools, and specialized search equipment are either scarce or in fact non-existent. Every passing minute reduces the chances of finding survivors alive. For a country located in a seismically active region, this raises an unavoidable question. How can emergency response agencies lack the most basic equipment necessary to save lives during a catastrophe of this magnitude? For years, Venezuela was one of the world's wealthiest oil-producing nations. Today, however, it faces a public debt exceeding $240 billion, alongside decades of deteriorating infrastructure and weakened public institutions. Numerous national and international investigations have examined allegations of corruption, the diversion of public funds, and overseas assets linked to current and former government officials. Many of these investigations remain ongoing. Meanwhile, it is the Venezuelan people who bear the consequences. So as of now, there is no verified count on missing persons. While citizen-led platforms have received tens of thousands of reports from families unable to locate relatives, those figures have not yet been independently confirmed. What is certain is that hundreds remain trapped beneath collapsed structures, and every hour that passes makes rescue efforts more difficult. International assistance has begun arriving. Search and rescue teams, medical personnel, humanitarian aid, and emergency resources have been announced by the United States, El Salvador, Mexico, Colombia, Spain, France, Italy, and other nations, together with international relief organizations. For countless Venezuelans, however, still trapped beneath collapsed buildings, that international response may represent their greatest hope of survival. In my view, the next 48 hours will be critical. Every successful rescue will depend on how quickly these specialized teams, the heavy machinery, and the life-saving equipment reach the affected areas. In disasters like this, time is not measured in hours, it is measured in lives. Beyond the earthquake itself, this catastrophe has exposed a deeper reality that many Venezuelans have warned about for years. When institutions weaken, when infrastructure deteriorates, and when emergency services are left without the resources they need, a natural disaster can rapidly become a humanitarian catastrophe. Today, Venezuela needs far more than sympathy. It needs immediate humanitarian assistance. It needs specialized rescue equipment. It needs trained emergency personnel. But above all, it needs the international community to keep its attention focused on the thousands of families who continue waiting for news of loved ones still buried beneath the rubble. History will remember this earthquake, but it will also remember how the world and those responsible for protecting the Venezuelan people responded. So now I ask you to join me in praying for those trapped beneath the rubble, praying for those who are tasked with saving them. This is a catastrophe of enormous consequence, and I ask you to pray with me for the Venezuelan people. I'm Roger Stone. This is a heartbreaking situation, and we'll be right back on the other side.
Meet Timothy. Because this is radio, you can't see Timothy. You can't see that Timothy has eczema, and you can't see that he's sliding down a slip and slide with his big brother. You see, Timothy's on Dupixent, dupilumab. It helps control his moderate to severe eczema when prescription topical therapies aren't enough. And because this is radio, you can't see Timothy's clearer skin or how he's itching less. But kids as young as 6 months can see for themselves how Dupixent helps heal their skin from within and get ahead of their eczema. And it's not a cream, steroid, or immunosuppressant. Severe allergic reactions, including skin reactions, can occur. Get help right away for face, mouth, tongue, or throat swelling, wheezing, or trouble breathing. Tell your doctor right away of new or worsening eye problems like eye pain or vision changes, skin symptoms, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop other treatments without talking to your doctor. Dupixent helps your child feel the heal. Ask your child's eczema specialist, visit Dupixent.com, or call 1-844-DUPIXENT.
This is going to be an extremely busy month. I have to watch 104 soccer games, follow the pregame, the postgame, yell useless opinions at the TV. It's a lot. So I knew that when it comes to screening for colon cancer, the choice was clear. The Cologuard Plus test. It can be used at home and can only take 15 minutes, so I can do it during halftime and not miss any action. If you are 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about screening for colon cancer with the Cologuard test. You can also request a prescription at Cologuard.com.
This episode is brought to you by Fox One. Watch all 104 matches of the FIFA World Cup live in 4K for just $19.99 a month with 3 days free. Build your own multi-view, choose up to 3 streams, and follow player spotlights. Stay on top of every moment with live stats, highlights, and instant replays. The FIFA World Cup, streaming live on Fox One. Offers are subject to change. See fox.com for complete terms and conditions.
I wrote a little song to remind you, Choice Hotels get you more of the experiences you value. The Cambria Hotel's got it all. A rooftop bar, have a ball. Bring a date, your squad, or even your mom. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back into the Stone Zone. In another impressive ruling by the Supreme Court, they handed the Trump administration a major immigration victory Thursday, ruling 6-3 that the government may move forward with ending temporary protected status for Haitian and Syrian migrants in the United States. The court rejected arguments that the administration had taken procedural shortcuts or acted out of racial discrimination. Writing for the majority, Justice Samuel Alito said those challenging the temporary protected status terminations were not entitled to court orders delaying the policy while litigation continued. Alito made clear that the TPS statute blocks many of the challengers' claims and that their constitutional argument was unlikely to succeed. That claim centered on the allegations that the decision to end the temporary protected status for Haiti was racially motivated. But Alito noted that the administration has terminated every one of these TPS designations that has come up from renewal, offering a strong race-neutral explanation. The Trump administration opposes the way the temporary protected status program has been used. The ruling reinforces the obvious point that temporary protected status was never meant to become a backdoor to permanent immigration. When emergency conditions change or when the administration determines the program has been stretched beyond its purpose, the executive branch has the authority to act. This is a massive win for immigration enforcement, national sovereignty, and the rule of law. The left has been shamelessly exploiting policies designed for humanitarianism to create a system where the third world is overrunning this country by design. Radical activist groups, of course, have attempted to use the courts to block President Trump's immigration agenda, but the Supreme Court just isn't having it. President Trump has broad discretion to use his executive authority to clamp down on the foreign invasion. That is exactly what he continues to do. In another big Supreme Court win, it's nothing but great news coming out of the nation's highest court this week. The Supreme Court of the United States handed the federal government a major immigration victory in the Mullen versus Al Otro Lado case, ruling that migrants waiting in Mexico to seek asylum do not have to be processed as if they had already arrived in the United States. The case centered on a lower court ruling that claimed migrants who were turned away before reaching the U.S. border should be treated as having arrived in America under federal immigration law. That would allow them to apply for asylum even while standing on the Mexico side of the border. The Supreme Court rejected that logic. The justices made clear that words matter, borders matter, and a person cannot be treated as having arrived in the United States when they have not actually arrived in the United States. This dispute traces back to the 2016 immigration surge, when ports of entry were overwhelmed by more migrants than officials could process. Then, Homeland Security responded with a policy known as metering, limiting how many people could be processed at a time. Immigration activists sued, arguing that those turned away were unlawfully denied asylum access. But the Supreme Court has now struck down the lower court's expansive interpretation, restoring a basic principle of sovereignty that the United States government has the authority to control who enters the country and when immigration claims must and can be considered. This ruling is a welcome reminder that federal immigration law cannot be rewritten by activist courts or open border groups. Activist courts have chipped away at border security measures for decades, contributing to the migration crisis that has put the future of America in serious jeopardy. But the Supreme Court is putting the hammer down and giving the Trump administration the leeway they need to reverse the damage that was done under Joe Biden. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is working with the government of Oman to ensure that the Strait of Hormuz, where roughly 20% of the world's energy must flow through, will be closed for a long period of time. After enduring some tough love from this administration, Oman is now saying that there will be no transit fees imposed on ships passing through the straits, a critical international waterway for global energy supplies. Oman's foreign minister, Sayed Badir bin Hamad al-Busaidi, said the statement Thursday after meeting with Persian Gulf diplomats and the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He said future arrangements concerning the Strait of Hormuz will not involve imposing any transit fees. This announcement comes after Iran and Oman discussed creating a joint mechanism to try to regulate traffic passing through the straits. Earlier language suggested there could be costs associated with that system, raising concerns that Iran might try to charge commercial vessels from passing through a waterway that has long been free and open. Secretary Rubio firmly rejected that idea, warning that international waterways do not belong to any one country and that no tolls would be allowed. Rubio said allowing countries to charge fees simply because a waterway is near their territory would set a dangerous precedent that could spread like wildfire and enable hostile regimes to have serious economic leverage all over the free world. Rubio's perspective is correct. Freedom of navigation is not negotiable, and the United States cannot allow Iran, or any other regime for that matter, to turn a vital global shipping lane into a toll road. The Strait of Hormuz is essential to the movement of energy supplies, and any attempt to restrict or monetize access would threaten global markets and international stability. Oman's statement is a welcome clarification, but Washington must remain vigilant. We cannot take these Islamic-dominated governments at their word. Peace can only be maintained through strength. Free passage through international waters must be defended vigilantly and never be bargained away. No one understands that more than Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump once again putting America first and asking a question many taxpayers have been asking for years. Where was NATO when America was carrying the load for their defense? Hosting NATO General Secretary Mark Rutte at the White House, President Trump criticized the alliance for its lack of meaningful support during the recent Iranian conflict. The President of the United States did not need help, noting the American forces demolished Iran's capabilities quickly. But he added that it would have been nice if our NATO allies had at least offered to stand with the United States as a kind gesture, after all the United States has done to help NATO over the years. President Trump has long warned that NATO members cannot expend endless American protection while failing to carry their fair share of the burden. The President's frustration was clear as the diplomat from NATO tried to defend Europe's role, pointing to U.S. planes taking off from European bases during the conflict. President Trump was not convinced, however, bluntly saying that European allies weren't there enough. Ambassador Rutte praised President Trump as the leader of the free world and credited him for confronting Iran's nuclear ambition and terror-exporting regime. He also attempted to highlight increased NATO commitments, reportedly presenting what he called the Trump Trillion. But President Trump didn't seem too impressed by the bureaucrats' hollow platitudes. He knows that alliances must be reciprocal, not one-sided. America should not be expected to fund, defend, or lead, while other nations offer this trite rhetoric instead of actual support. Europe is beginning to understand that the free ride has come to an end. During Trump's first term, he collected a delinquent $650 million from the NATO allies that they hadn't paid, and nations like Germany are now devoting more resources to their own defense, as they should. This is not isolationism. This is just common sense. Donald Trump's been talking about it since he and I went to New Hampshire together in 1988. No longer will we be taken advantage of by our so-called allies. Meanwhile, the battle over election integrity is heating up again, this time at the US Postal Service. Postmaster General David Steiner told senators Wednesday that states refusing to comply with a presidential election integrity order could see their mail-in ballots stopped under a proposed regulation. During a Senate hearing, Democrat Senator Gary Peters of Michigan asked whether the Postal Service would still mail ballots if a state refused to turn over its absentee voter list to the federal government. Steiner replied by saying, "Under our proposed regulation, no, we would tell the state that we need that manifest." This policy stems from President Trump's executive order ensuring citizen verification and integrity in federal elections, which directs federal agencies to help verify that mail-in ballots go only to eligible U.S. citizens. The order calls for an approved voter list, expanded ballot tracking, and cooperation between state and federal agencies. This measure, in my opinion, is long overdue. It's a safeguard after years of concerns about loose mail-in voting rules, outdated voter rolls, and election systems that refuse to do their due diligence on verifying the authenticity of ballots. Democrat-led states and voting rights groups are already suing, claiming the order by Trump is unconstitutional. But states that want federal help delivering ballots should be willing to prove that those ballots are going to lawful, eligible voters. This is not an unreasonable ask. Election integrity is not optional. Citizenship matters, and the federal government has a duty to protect the ballot box. This is a matter of national security. No matter how much Democrats complain and moan, the Trump administration must continue using its authority, exhausting every avenue to ensure that the midterm elections cannot be stolen like I believe the 2020 election was. Meanwhile, the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool is looking cleaner and brighter after recent reports of algae buildup and alleged vandalism at one of America's most iconic national landmarks. A video shared by TMZ showed the water in Washington, D.C. looking noticeably blue and improved. TMZ's Charlie Cotton said the reflecting pool looked magnificent, adding that if people are going to criticize it when it looks bad, they should also acknowledge it when it looks great. The improved water clarity also made a jagged line at the bottom of the pool more visible, the same type of damage President Trump previously suggested may have been caused by vandalism. In a June 20th Truth Social post, Trump had said the U.S. Park Police had arrested multiple individuals vandalizing the reflecting pool, causing the destruction of national monuments, a serious crime. He said repairs, of course, would begin immediately. Trump also highlighted his administration's broader effort to clean, renovate, and beautify Washington's monuments and memorials, including dozens of statues, fountains, and historic sites. Last time I was in the Oval Office, he showed me a map and a list of those monuments and statues to be cleaned and some to be repositioned. While acknowledging problems with vandalism and algae at the reflecting pool, the president said the algae was already 75% gone and that the remaining damage would soon be repaired. This is about more than just water quality. It's about restoring respect for America's history, protecting national treasures, and making clear that vandalism against our monuments will not be tolerated. They got away with it back during the Black Lives Matter riots in 2020 when they desecrated national monuments all over the country and they tried to erase our nation's history. That cannot and must not ever be allowed again, particularly on the 250th anniversary of our founding. Thanks for joining us today in the Stone Zone. I'm Roger Stone. We'll be back with more political news on the other side because President Donald Trump is calling out the big oil companies, specifically Exxon, Chevron, Shell, and BP, for keeping gas prices artificially high. We'll talk about it on the other side, and we'll be right back.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Need a laptop that's built to perform and designed to last all day? Select Windows 11 PCs starting at $499.99 are now at Best Buy. Learn more at bestbuy.com. Best Buy. Imagine that.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back into the Stone Zone. Yesterday I made an enormous mathematical error. I said that George Conway, who ran fifth in the Democrat primary for the 12th Congressional District of New York City, had spent $1 million a vote. He got 6,000 votes. He spent $6 million. Obviously, my mathematical skills were off. He spent about $1,000 a vote and still was embarrassed to come in sixth. So I was happy to make that correction. President Trump is turning up the heat on Big Oil, naming Exxon, Chevron, Shell, and BP as companies responsible for keeping gas prices artificially high as oil prices are actually falling. Speaking to reporters, the president said that oil prices have dropped sharply, but drivers aren't seeing enough relief at the pump. In his view, gas should be around $2.25 a gallon, far below the current national average, which hovers somewhere around $4 a gallon. Earlier this week, President Trump announced that he had directed the Justice Department to begin looking into possible price gouging actions, artificially inflating the cost of gas in the marketplace. On Truth Social, he accused major oil companies of failing to lower pump prices in line with the cheaper oil they're buying, warning that gasoline prices better start going down a lot and fast. The American Petroleum Institute pushed back, saying that retail fuel prices do not move in perfect lockstep with crude oil prices, while also saying the industry shares the goal of delivering relief to consumers. Basically, they're towing the company line as an industry would be expected to. But American families should not be squeezed while powerful corporations benefit from falling input costs. Trump's message is classic America First economics: energy independence, lower prices, and accountability for corporations that profit while working people are struggling. Unlike other Republicans, President Trump doesn't make excuses for industry giants if they're not behaving in ways that help the American people and our families. This is a breath of fresh air from the fake free market Republicans of old. A White House spokesperson says that Trump has been clear that any energy market disruptions tied to the Iran situation must be short-term, and the prices should fall quickly once stability returns. There are no more excuses for gas prices to be high. Big Oil better get with the program or else. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court delivered a major victory for the Second Amendment on Thursday, ruling 6-3 that Hawaii's attempt to restrict lawful concealed carry on private property is unconstitutional. At issue was a Hawaiian law that barred concealed carry permit holders from bringing a firearm onto private property unless the owner gave express permission. So in practice, the court found that flipped the traditional constitutional jurisprudence on its head. Under long-standing common law, people may enter businesses and other private property open to the public unless an owner specifically says they cannot. Justice Samuel Alito, writing for the majority, said that Hawaii's law severely burdened the rights of citizens who had already met that state's already rigorous requirements to carry a firearm. He noted that permit holders could be blocked from everyday places like gas stations, restaurants, grocery stores, drugstores, coffee shops, barber shops, laundromats, big box stores, simply because they were carrying for self-defense and doing so with a permit. Alito said the law was part of Hawaii's effort to replace old restrictions that were struck down by the court's Bruin decision recently with new rules designed to achieve the same result. The majority made clear that states cannot treat the Second Amendment as a second-class right. Alito wrote, Hawaii's law, quote, hobbles the constitutional right of Americans to carry arms for self-defense as they go about their daily lives. So for gun owners and constitutional conservatives, this ruling is a powerful reminder that the right to self-defense does not end at your front door. It's also another accomplishment of President Trump and a more conservative Supreme Court he put into place on the issue of promoting gun freedom. We are going on the offense when it comes to defending firearm freedom, and we have the gun grabbers on the run thanks to the appointments of President Donald Trump. I must say that the spate of victories by populist and right-leaning parties in places like Chile, Peru, Colombia most recently, Honduras, Argentina a bit earlier. All of these seem to coincide with the cutoff of USAID funds. Those funds were going to fund leftist political activities. That is why you have conservative governments now winning elections, conservative candidates winning elections across Central and South America. I'm Roger Stone. Thanks for joining us today in the Stone Zone. Until tomorrow, God bless you and Godspeed.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?